Hey everyone, it's Kai.
And Lafayette, and this is
The Theory of Living. Thanks for tuning in. We're able to bring you this episode thanks to our Patreon members.
Patreon is a subscription-based platform where people can provide support for content creators like us.
Thanks to our Patreon members and supporters, we're able to provide free content on the podcast and weekly episodes.
By being a Patreon member, you'll have access to our entire podcast library, full video and audio episodes, along with much more.
If you like this episode and you feel it adds value to your life,
or you hate it,
please subscribe on Patreon and or leave your review on Apple Podcast.
And don't forget to mention it to your friends over your next beer. Truly, thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of The Theory of Living. I know this is a comparably very formal introduction, but I've always wanted to try it. So there you go.
How did that feel coming out of your mouth? What did that taste like?
I'll never do that again.
You'll never do it?
Yeah. It's just not my thing, or our thing. I just don't like to have that formality in our show. So yeah, I don't like that. Maybe you guys can have, give us better suggestions for our intro, but I think it is pretty good as it is now.
Yeah. I think it hits the major and key elements of what we're trying to convey to the audience.
Right. So I have no problem with it, personally. Do you?
I mean, I think it can be improved upon to a degree,
Right.
Perhaps. Maybe some of the sound editing, because it just kind of
Right.
sounds like a business intro, or, you
Right.
know, like you're joining us for the 6 o'clock news. Join Kai and Lafayette for the 6 o'clock news. It seems a little, the sound seems a little ridiculous.
Right.
I don't dislike it, but
it is, it's not that it is a problem, right? I mean, but if we take all the forms and ins and outs of those shows and media while we, criticize them a lot of times, right? I'm not saying, by the way, all medias are bad. We're not saying that, but
ours
a lot
is
of
just
times
better.
we've been, criticizing and at least discussing the severity of imposed ideas and media consumerism. And one of the characteristics is formality, right? And, in certain situations, formality is important. But I think a lot of times it really clouds or corrupts the nature of the subject.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely think there's an element to having roughness around the edges, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We still trip up on our words. We still have the uhs, the likes. These things that are part of very everyday and normal conversation for the vast majority of the population. But again, you don't see that in the media because they're reading from a script, or they've developed their social skills and their speaking ability to the degree that they don't have the slip-ups like we do. And of course, we want to take that to a minimal, but it's going to happen. It's just part of normal human conversation, human interaction, and our podcast is going to reflect that and try to capture that true bit of nature. We're not reading from scripts. We're not reading teleprompters. You'll see a lot of things out there where, oh, wow, that guy comes across really intelligent. Well, yeah, he's reading from a teleprompter, or he's memorized the script. And again, there is a certain level of intelligence involved with preparing your show notes or what you're going to read aloud to share it with somebody. I'm not knocking on those people. But if you're doing that every time, you might lose the ability to become authentic, or to be authentic in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, we've read off of our screens a couple of times, but generally we do not have a script. We do not have. It's not that we don't prepare for podcasts, but a lot of times, for today's topic, for example, it's about fasting. We're not going to go over a lot of scientific parts of it because we're not doctors, first of all. Not to say that we're not capable of learning these things or presenting those ideas properly, but just because it is just redundant, right? I mean, you can look into it if you want, investigate further, but the real discussion we like to have on all podcast episodes is that through our experiences, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we don't really need a script, even though we talk about the overall structure of the episode. But that's why we do not have formal like script or teleprompter and things of that nature.
Yeah, we don't want to lose the authentic element of conversation.
Yeah.
Even between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have notes typed up and
Mm-hmm.
rough ideas, but we're not going to be speaking directly like line, Kai. It was line. Yeah, come on, man. That's not what this is about. This is
that'd
about
be very
authenticity.
easy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if we do that, I mean, it'll be really easy, right? I mean, I'm not saying this is hard already, but easy in that, like, we don't have to, read things in the particular way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have to do that at all. So
Yeah, and speaking about what you mentioned with the fasting,
Mhm.
so again, our background's engineering. We have a deep interest in philosophy
Mhm.
and verifying things via
Yeah.
the data we have. So there's
Right.
a lot of empirical data we look at. So this
Right.
fasting is not purely anecdotal. We're just not going to get into the science. We can add those resources in the
yeah,
comment section, the details, and we can share that. And of course,
yeah,
as it goes without say with every podcast, the information we
Mhm.
present to you is purely information. Doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or it's wrong,
right.
and you need to research it yourself and have some experience
Right.
around it.
Yes, we may make some mistakes, may not at all. I'm only saying this because this is not our, expertise.
Correct.
That's the only reason I'm saying this. But I'm pretty, knowledgeable in this matter because I've been doing fasting for many, many years now. And I guess I will start with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm wearing glasses today.
Because you can't see after all the fasting.
But anyway, years ago, I think it was about 2017 for me. I had been lifting, doing kickboxing and running, all those sorts that I love to do. And primarily lifting. We were into lifting for a while in December 2016 and 17,
around there, yeah.
right? And then I gained a lot of weight. Good weights, by the way, a lot of muscles. I'm only 5'7", but I went up to like 200
Pretty jacked.
pounds.
You're pretty jacked, yeah.
So people would always ask me, make comment on my body and how jacked I am, if I'm a bodybuilder.
Pigs.
Because I was really stocky. I mean, 200 pounds and 5'7" is
For your frame's
very
huge.
heavy. And I maintained the weight for a long freaking time because I liked it. I loved every part of it, the aesthetics and lifting itself. And from a certain point, I had many issues at my joints, typically inflammation, pain. I had to wear tapes or sleeves on my wrist and knees, and to prevent the whatever was happening to develop. And I did that for a long time, and I was just done with it. This is not normal. I had a seen doctor, by the way. They told me that, you're just lifting too heavy, whatever. And I was thinking, yes, partially is true, but really doesn't explain. I mean, I was if that's the case, I was sort of like, that is not a normal case, right? Because there are a lot of bodybuilders do way more, like about my size and 250 pounds, whatever, right? So anyway, I didn't have any luck with anything else, so I, turned my attention to diet, and I did a lot of research, and I tried many different diets. Carnivore diet was one of them, and keto and all that, and clean diet, which is mostly just organic foods without any added sugar, flour, those kind of things.
So you've done a lot of variations of diets.
Oh, yeah,
and dieting
because-
methods,
Mm-hmm.
and primarily to lose weight in mind or to shred up. Was that the primary goal
no,
of your diets?
That was sort of like whatever. If I lose weight, yeah, I think that'll be helpful, for my joint problems. But if not, whatever. Still, I would have, different, experimenting ideas, conditions with the same condition on both cases, which is weight in this case, right? So I tried all of them, and it didn't really fix my problem. To a certain extent, it did, but largely it did not. So that's why I started intermittent fasting. And by the way, the clean diet, the clean diet really did good job for me. The pain, probably 90% of the pain were gone, and but 10% wouldn't still disappear. So that was a really big bummer, and I was desperate because, yes, in terms of pain, yeah, whatever, I could have lived with the pain, but the idea that I had to live with the pain for the rest of my life
just seems kind of unreasonable, right?
Yeah, unreasonable, and I really, it forced me to think that I have to do something about this. And I did further research, and I went into intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And intermittent fasting, fasting in general, has been in the fields of research for a long freaking time. I think it's longer than keto, by the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then after 4 days of fasting, all the pain was gone.
Wow, that's a pretty huge statement.
Yeah.
4 days.
As you guys know, fasting and keto, especially fasting, is really effective for a lot of autoimmune diseases, inflammation being part of it. So when I saw the research and the results, along with my results, I was pretty positive that, okay, this is really not invasive. There has been a lot of research, and there's minimum like negative side effects, almost none in this case for me. And then the effect was pretty clear. So, I've been practicing intermittent fasting since then, basically. I mean, here and there, I, there's some, got out of intermittent fasting, but mostly, for the most part, I've been doing intermittent fasting.
You want to talk about your windows? So when you say fasting, are you saying you're not? So I know what you're talking about, but maybe for somebody out there listening.
Yeah. So intermittent fasting is basically out of 24 hours, you have a specific eating window. In my case, 8. So 16 to 8 is very typical. That's what most people do.
Most common, I think. Yeah,
most common. I've done it 18 and 6 just out of curiosity. I've tested many different eating windows, but I personally didn't find any difference among them. The only difference was that the added convenience with the smaller eating window.
Yeah.
Because, you basically spend less hours of eating, right? So that was, I guess, a benefit, but not very significant for me.
Yeah. So. Wow, so you've been doing it for a while now. I think my first experience with fasting goes way, way before that, but you'll probably have the same experience. So religious fasting, having grown up in a Christian home of multiple denominations at varying times.
Right.
My mom had a strong interest in the Jewish festivals, which are surrounded with a lot of fasting. So there was a few different times in my childhood where we went through fasting periods. Since I was very young, I've never really had a huge appetite, so being hungry has never really bothered me. I've been a very naturally slimmer dude, very hard to put on weight, and never really had trouble not eating.
Yeah.
So it was already like naturally something for me that I wanted to do, or my body was leaning towards that type of lifestyle. I didn't start doing it seriously until probably about actually the same time you did, when I first moved up to New York. I'd been doing intermittent fasting here and there, but nothing like consistently and planned or methodically.
Yeah.
But I found it to be absolutely the best and most efficient way to stay lean and feel sharp and be healthy. So I would do a similar window.
Yeah.
Mornings would start. I'd have coffee every morning. I wouldn't have lunch till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then I would have my dinner about 8:30 or 9.
Yeah.
And that would be it. But it really worked very well for me. And I've tried so many different types of, again, diets, specifically when I was trying to gain weight, because for you guys out there who may not know, I was a personal trainer and gone to personal training school in Austin that focused with the training element, but they also have a subsection of nutrition. So technically certified in both those, whatever that means. The science has changed so drastically since then. And again, we don't have robust exercise science or nutritional data just because it's such a new field, really. So one thing to be mindful of is when anybody suggests anything, even with fasting in this case, go and try to find the data and the research to back it, because a lot of these things are fads. Fasting's one that's been around, though, for pretty much the dawn of time. I mean, people have been starving forever.
Right.
So there is a lot of data to help indicate and kind of guide you along the process.
Right? Yeah.
So I went from the same issues you were having with joint pain, specifically when I was lifting heavy, when we were lifting heavy together and I was bigger. Because at that time, too, I was about 200, a little over 200. Or, right on the cusp of 200, I guess.
Yeah.
And I found lifting always, particularly with my shoulders, always getting injured.
Yeah.
Just could not avoid it no matter what. I think that was primarily because we were doing chest and we were doing like flat barbell stuff. But in conjunction with moving away from specifically lifting in that method and then also fasting, I have almost no joint issues at all. I'm lean pretty much all the time. All my friends are always, they're always shocked because on the weekends we'll go out and have beers. I'll have burgers. I eat whatever I want. If you saw me, you would have no idea that I'm fasting the other times of the week. You would think this guy is a pig. He eats whatever he wants, drinks whatever he wants. Doesn't matter. But that's because Monday to Friday, leading up to the weekend when we were in that 9-to-5 lifestyle. For me personally, I was very dogmatic in the food I ate. It was very healthy all the time. But as soon as the weekend came, let's drink the beers, let's eat the good food. And, I've maintained pretty much not my entire life, but the vast majority of my life been at 10% or under 10% body fat.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's partially genetics, but fasting plays a huge role in that.
Yes. So during that fasting period, a lot of things happen, and this was one of the most famous studies about fasting is that the 16-hour window of fasting in a mouse. By the way, that 16-hour fasting period hours to a mouse is way longer than 16 hours to us. We gotta make sure of that. And then their digestive system and our digestive system are completely different, right? So, but in a mouse, the fasting experiment, they basically ate whatever they wanted, whatever, basically.
During their window?
During the 8-hour window,
okay.
They couldn't gain weight. None
really?
Of the mice. Yeah, so the possible reason they are saying is that the amount of enzymes in the liver that oxidize fat increases. That was sort of like possible reason. But I think...
Does it increase from the point in their fasting so that when they go into their eating window, they have that excess enzyme? Is that what you're saying?
No, during the fasting, that enzyme increases.
Okay, yeah, during the fasting, it increases.
Right.
Okay.
So again... the experiment it doesn't extend fully to humans, right? Because we have a lot of differences, right, between mouse and human being, but it does, right? That appears to be the case. I mean, from a lot of studies and our own experiences, and not just ours. I mean, if you talk to anybody who's been doing intermittent fasting for a while, they can attest to the fact that it's kind of. I mean, also, let's not forget the fact that it's so easy to do. I mean, easier. I'm sorry, guys. This is in comparison, by the way. For example, even keto, you have to be very careful what you're eating, right? Because in order to enter the state of ketosis, you have to have a certain amount of, below a certain amount of fat amount, right, intake. Yes, you can measure it. You can,
P-test,
track the
urine
record
test.
But it's hard. I mean, the thing is, though, it's easy to make a mistake. That's what I'm getting at. And on top of all the detailed grocery list and all that, right?
Hey man, what was that we saw? Keto cocktails the other day in Sedona. Hey, look, you can get your alcohol keto.
I don't know how effective it is, but I give that, people try.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I see from that. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
to me,
really
it's
give
just
too
like
much thought of it.
The most complex way to arrive to the same
Yeah.
destination. They're like, okay, look, dude, we're gonna get to where we're going. We're gonna get to this island, but how about instead of taking the speedboat, we just, I don't know, let's make a canoe with our own hands,
Right.
and then we're gonna paddle out there, and maybe we'll make it to the island.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, fasting's like in the speedboat, like, hey, let's chill out for like 16 hours and then jump in the speedboat
Right.
and get there.
Yeah, so like fasting, intermittent fasting specifically, you don't really have to worry about too much other than the eating foods within the eating window. I mean, I've done it. I don't really do that for health reason, but just for the purpose of losing weight or maintaining weight, I can probably eat whatever I want, a pizza, burger, of course, within my calories, maintaining calories. Within the eating window, I wouldn't have any consequence to my weight.
Yeah, no.
but-
Pure weight. But again, health is more than weight, right?
Yeah, of course.
Everybody out there listening to this is not
But
the end all.
regardless of all that, I'm just saying that intermittent fasting, there's almost nothing to worry about other than eating within your window.
All right, well, let's talk about,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing
Mhm.
or issue and pushback I've had when I've mentioned fasting to
Yeah.
friends or other people is, I'm hungry. I feel sluggish unless I have
Yeah.
breakfast or something along those lines. Like, I just can't
Right.
think or focus or have
Yeah.
all these negative repercussions for skipping literally a single meal.
Yeah.
That's usually the pushback I get.
Yeah.
I think people, I don't remember the specific marker tied to hunger and the sensation of being hungry, but there are studies, and again, we'll include these links in all the relevant materials for the people listening, that based on how often you eat and the frequency of eating is going to have a direct impact on the levels of hunger you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, there's also the types of meals and the food you're eating are tied to satiate or
Satiate. Yeah.
I don't know why
I
satiation.
sometimes have a hard time.
Yeah, the sensation of being full, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what the word is. And a lot of the problem, though, is that most people don't realize, just like anything in your life, if you haven't done it before, no matter what it is, it's going to be difficult at first. But eventually, even with the fasting, after a few days,
Right.
a week, if you can keep your windows and maintain it and not break it, you'll actually find that you don't get hungry.
Yeah.
And we've all experienced this before. We've all experienced where we're too busy, so we skip a meal and we feel crazy hungry, but then enough time passes and you don't feel hungry at all.
Right.
Almost
Right.
as if you had eaten the meal.
Yeah, that is pretty much the universal case among everybody, right? Because you just talked about the marker, the typical the substance that is associated with the level of hunger, right? But also, I get the questions a lot. That question a lot too. My experience is that I had a hard time too, man. The first week was hard. Yeah, when I did fasting for the first time, it was so foreign to me. Like just skipping. Okay, breakfast is more than breakfast to a lot of people, right? It's more than food. Ritual. You get together, have coffee, with your coworkers, sit together, complain about your employer. It's a ritual. I love breakfast, man. I do. I really do. With the coffee, it's so good. But pastry and croissant, I love it. So we do, like on vacation and things like that, right?
Yeah, sure. Fasting, any diet or exercise routine, whatever it is, it's got to serve you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it has to be serving for you. Most people have just realized and mistaken, or sorry, not realized, but have failed to realize and have mistaken that breakfast, they think it serves them, but really it's harming them. Again, because a lot of the things surrounding breakfast are, at least here in the U.S., they're high carb, high sugar, things that do not give you satisfactions, things that you burn off almost instantly, spike your insulin, and then crash you.
Yeah.
And then you're wondering why you're hungry at 11 o'clock.
Right.
And it's not even lunchtime.
Right.
You're starving and you have literally done nothing. Purely, this is the effect of food. Not purely, right? There's a lot of processes involved with this, but directly correlate it with
the
food.
contributor, for sure. Yeah.
So we're addicted to a certain lifestyle that, again, may not be benefiting us.
Yeah. But anyway, it is hard, but it'll go away. I can guarantee you that. I can assure that it'll go away. It could, it could take less days than some people, for some of you, or longer even, but it'll eventually go away. Yeah, the hunger that you feel in the morning by skipping breakfast eventually goes away. And from my experience, it was about 4 days. Yeah. But for the 4 days, I really had a hard time, like not eating. Yeah. And, this was a really common question when I started intermittent fasting. Hey, can I drink a cup of coffee? Yes, you can. Okay.
Thank God.
Years ago, that seemed to be not so clear to a lot of people, even in 2016 and 17. When I, Googled, when I researched, a lot of people were asking the question, like, does that actually break the fasting? But it does not. Yeah. It doesn't seem to really break the fasting. And
again, so let me cut you off there. When we're talking about coffee, we're saying black coffee, guys. We're not saying, typical
Sugar
American
drink.
coffee.
Yeah.
We're saying black, pure, nothing in it. If you want to add something to help with flavor and stuff like that, go with like cinnamon.
Yeah.
It's really great. Can kind of kill some bitter flavors.
So basically negligible calories, 5 to 15, I would say. But the most black coffee, cup of coffee is about 5 to 10. So that doesn't really seem to... I don't know if it doesn't activate the digestive system at all, or it does, but it really is negligible that it doesn't really break the fasting. I don't know the exact reason, but in terms of whether or not a cup of coffee breaks fasting, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And then also, we've basically naturally talked about the benefits of fasting, but a lot of times people say, and we've pretty much experienced it every day. We typically eat after workout, right? Around 1 or 2, something like that.
Or lately 3 and 4, 5 o'clock.
We're used to this, so
guys.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that, they'll feel sharper, they'll feel better, and there's a scientific explanation behind it. Is that because during the period of deprivation of food, we secrete more epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine is basically just adrenaline. So that's why we feel sharper and better.
Yeah, they actually used to sell it as ephedra. It's illegal now, but it used to be in all these diet supplements specifically designed to help you lose weight.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's another sign.
Right.
But again, people are having a lot of heart conditions and things because it's not essentially, but similar to speed in that regard.
Yeah.
was my
And also another
understanding.
benefit is that you get to have stable energy level. Some people really don't experience high energy level during fasting, but I think commonly though, even if that's not the case, most people do experience stable energy level without vacillating energy level.
Yeah, I mean, without like actively checking your blood glucose level consistently, probably intravenously, how would you know? How would you know? I mean, we're going to be based off filling.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you're capable,
for
right?
sure.
And that's also a horrible metric because unless you go put yourself to the test, whether it's going to be an endurance athlete, a power athlete, whatever your forte is, you can't really know if you have energy unless you're trying to expend it. You can have a perception of the energy you have, but usually that's not accurate.
Right.
I mean, we've all known this. We've all gone to the gym or gone to do some activity, whether it's mental or physical, and we feel freaking gassed, tired, like we have nothing to do it. But as soon as we start doing it, like, oh shoot, actually, like I'm sharp, I'm really good, or and we do all our training fasted. We spend at least minimum 2 hours at the gym climbing, and that's including power workouts and things of that nature, and I have zero impact on my performance based on fasting.
I'm relatively new to climbing, as you guys know, but I used to run and lift even Muay Thai in a fasted state. Didn't have any problem. The only thing that I had problem with was problem Muay Thai during explosive drills. That's when I had felt like, this is maybe not the best. So I would do Muay Thai workout in the evening after meal. That was the only area that I felt a fasted state workout is not the greatest idea. Also, another exception for me was that running, generally I would run in a fasted state. But if I were to run long miles, for me that would be about hour and a half or 2 hours. If I were to do that, then I would eat something, because that's a suicide, especially in Texas.
Heat's on
That
you,
heat,
beating down.
yeah, and there you don't have basically any energy. You're not in ketosis. You're not going to tap into.
Yeah, you can't
know,
reserve or get into the fat reserves.
So it is really bad idea, and especially on a long run day, not just. I eat like about an hour before the running, but also I would pack like
electrolyte gels,
gel and things like that has sugar and things like that.
And again, though, you can still fast and go do these things, right? You just have to play with your exercise time in that regard.
I mean, it has to do with your, physical ability as well. But typically, a long run, let's say like half marathon or marathon, not a good idea to do it in a fasted state. I'm sure somebody has done it.
There's some freaks out there. Some David Goggins.
Just like there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to do that,
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to really experience it and then learn for yourself.
Yeah.
And then establish the standards and rules for around your.
And when you say running, he's not talking like 4 miles. He's talking actual distance.
Yeah.
4 miles is nothing in comparison to what you're talking about.
Did I say 4 miles?
No, I'm just saying without being
yeah.
specific, somebody can hear that and be like, "Oh man, I can't go do my 1 mile jog unless I have food." It's like, bro, get the hell out of here. What are you talking about? You can do a mile, okay? You can do, again, this is going to depend on you and your condition level and all those things, but. We're talking about when you're tapping into like your actual endurance, different energy systems, and all the things available to them.
Yeah. So that's why if you look at the ultramarathon training, the race, 100 miles, whatever, like in their eating station and water, like they eat pizza and chocolate. Something like
well
that.
earned.
Something like that. It's not a healthy food at all.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And again, though, I mean, fasting is more than just about losing weight, right? You also have to make sure you're getting your daily intake, your vitamins, minerals. And fortunately, like our friends mentioned, who's a doctor, a lot of our food is fortified with all these things. So it's pretty hard to have an imbalance or a lack thereof. But you'll need to be mindful of what you're consuming. And I think one of the greatest things about fasting is that I don't have to count calories. Don't worry about it. I don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, I pay attention. I have a rough idea of how many calories I'm consumed.
Yeah.
But I've never entered anything to a log, or I never put anything down in my notes or think like, I can't have that. It's too many calories, blah, blah, blah. Usually the considerations we make for food is this processed? Does it have a lot of preservatives? Is it whole food? And all those things. Those are the considerations that go through my mind rather than calorically how dense is this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, fasting, we talked about weight control, right? But also, it's not just for weight control, right? I mean, it has a lot of benefits, like we talked about earlier. Autoimmune diseases, stable insulin level. There's therefore less vacillating energy level. There are a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it was joint pain, inflammation. That was the reason that I did this. And, I think I'm going to continue to do this just because it's so easy. I can't really think of having breakfast anymore on a normal day because it's so, that has become my norm, Again, on a special occasion like vacation or, beautiful place or whatever, or you just hang out with your friends on a Saturday morning and they want to go to IHOP, I would go to IHOP. I love pancakes. No problem. And I guess let's move on to next subject, which is autophagy. I've been doing this for about a little over a year now. Autophagy is, I mean, okay, before you go with actual autophagy, what am I talking about? So on top of the intermittent fasting that I had been doing, I also added a 3-day fasting. And I've been doing this quarterly. I ran into this idea when I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast, or before that, I don't know.
Who's Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan? So he is a stand-up. No. So Peter Attia, I'm not sure if he was talking about this on Joe Rogan's podcast. I think it was before that. I ran into him. He was talking about something. It was years ago on TED Talk. He was talking about insulin resistance and things like that. And anyway, he does 3-day fasting. I don't know if he still does it, but when I ran into his talk, he was doing it. So 3-day fasting, the reason I'm doing this is to induce this metabolic process called autophagy. So typically in a fasted state, more than 48 to 72 hours, the autophagy process can be induced, and this is a survival mechanism basically. So what it does is that it breaks down cells, and then it uses their breakdown products to sustain survival. So it's a little bit different from apoptosis, which is basically a programmed mechanism to kill certain cells like a cancer cells. So this is already predetermined, pre-programmed mechanism, apoptosis. But autophagy is not. Autophagy is induced, in this period of nutrient deprivation, which means that you need to survive, right?
Yeah.
So what body does is that basically eating itself, right?
Delicious.
So breaks down cells, use those to sustain survival. That's what it does. And as you do it, you can basically, replace a lot of damaged cells and things of that nature. So he was doing it for the purpose of studying longevity. I think that's his specialty. So I did it for the first time about a year and a half ago. Very hard, by the way. The first attempt was the hardest fasting in my whole life, and I think that was largely due to the caffeine withdrawal symptoms. I had a
headache,
massive headache for entire 3 days.
Yeah.
But second time gets better, third time is better, and
We just did it last week, and that was what, your
we did it
fourth?
last week, and it's doable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not that bad.
That
was
really.
your first time, right? 3-day
First time
fasting?
doing it in this regard.
Okay.
I've done it religiously before as a
Right.
kid, right? But that was so far behind me, I don't even remember it.
Right. You
But
want to talk about
I'm
your
sure I've done
experience?
it. Yeah, I mean, again, similar to what I was saying before,
Mm-hmm.
I never really had a trouble with having a lack of appetite or not eating.
Yeah.
So first day, super chill, super easy. Honestly, second day, not
Mhm.
that bad. But that night, it was different. And I've experienced this before when
Yeah.
I've done some hardcore calorie restriction, but had really hard time sleeping,
Mhm.
night sweats, tossing and turning, just could not get to sleep. And then when I finally did,
Mhm.
I woke up, I don't know, a few hours later,
Yeah.
basically just couldn't sleep. And at that point, I said, okay, as soon as I hit the 72-hour mark,
Mhm.
I'm done, just because this is having an impact on my sleep. And that's, I think arguably
Yeah.
more important than being fasted is your sleep, the impact it has on your overall health. So, at that point, I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll get through this, get to the 72-hour period,
Yeah.
and then have some food. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And had a lot of food, too much. And that
Yeah, that
made
was
a
a
little
mistake,
sick, but
should have, stopped you, but I rather joined you.
it was it was glorious. I mean, if we would have stopped with the curry,
Right.
it would have been fine. But,
So,
glutton for punishment.
Any of you who wants to try this, make sure that you don't break your fast with bad food or a lot in
Yeah.
terms of amount. That's just not a good thing to do, because your stomach has been empty for 3 days. It's more wise to eat something easier on your stomach, something soft, and have progressive meals instead of just one large meal. That's not a
Yeah,
good idea.
there's an issue with the electrolyte balance in the water
Mm.
you have in your system as well.
Mm.
That can induce the sensations of
Right.
wanting to vomit, nausea, headache. I had a headache for probably
Mm.
2 days after that, from that time. And that was
Yeah.
just because too much sugar spiked the insulin, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. But the other thing that we forgot to mention was that during this 3-day fast,
Mhm.
typically your digestive tract and your organs are all
Mm.
doing these things to help digest the food, put energy where it needs to be.
Mhm.
And during that 3-day fast, your organs actually get to rest and
Mhm.
recuperate a bit. So your
Yeah.
energy systems can focus on the other things like autophagy, survival, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So it's kind of like a great reset state.
Yes.
And I haven't done it before till
Oh.
this time, as an adult at least.
Mhm.
So I was very interested to see the results. And
Yeah.
I mean, afterwards, pretty drastic results, I felt
Yeah.
like. And of course, they're anecdotal. We're going to have to try this more often and document some of the findings
Mhm.
that we had. But I found, even though the first day back climbing, the energy levels were lower, but the power was better. I felt sharper.
Mhm.
And I mean, you had a pretty drastic experience. Again, I mean, you're new to climbing,
Right.
but you went from being able to hang on, or you couldn't even hang on this like 18 millimeter edge.
Mhm.
And then today you went and hung off a 14, 15 millimeter edge
Yeah.
pretty casually,
Yeah.
which was very surprising to see.
Yeah.
So there seems to be, again, we can't correlate it, right? We don't have enough data to even
Yeah.
suggest that.
I
But
won't. Yeah.
there's some very real health benefits, even if they are just purely placebo in some
Yeah.
regard. But I would definitely highly recommend
Yeah.
trying this to anybody
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it can't hurt you.
3-day fasting is not really dangerous. Doesn't seem to be that way, but you need to be careful if you want to do more extended period of time for fasting because in the 90s, so basically they found in the 90s, early 90s, that when they disable this apoptosis in a cancer cell, they found that, which puzzled everybody at the time, the cancer cell still survived through autophagy.
Wow.
So autophagy is a pathway for cancer survival. So really strange thing is that autophagy can protect a person from getting cancer, but once someone has cancer, it seems to actually disproportionately benefit the cancer cell than the regular cell.
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful if you want to do longer fasting, because again, autophagy, in case you have cancer, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's why you need to investigate and research this a little further. But this is what I know for sure, that assuming that if you have a cancer, autophagy can be a very bad thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
depending on the length of the fast, right?
Yeah.
Because
3 days is, I would still say that is safe because it can take up to 72 hours to
Even
induce
introduce it,
autophagy.
yeah.
So, it's really insufficient time.
yeah, if you're somebody that's struggling with that idea, then you need
Yeah.
to, consult your medical
Yeah, I just
practitioner,
wanted to
all those other people.
present all the ideas so that you can. But I strongly recommend to still research. I mean, this is my knowledge, very shallow knowledge based on my experience, my research. I still pay attention to it because I don't want to get behind it.
Yeah.
But still, you need to, just because we're not doctors, we're not
No.
asking you to do anything.
And another thing to consider is a lot of doctors actually don't even study this in depth,
yeah.
right? They're specialists.
they know what it is.
Yeah, the
but-
medical field is huge. It's vast. It's complex.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the traditional education is how you respond
Mhm.
and to treatment, right?
Yeah.
How you give treatment to someone who's already ill.
Yeah.
Fasting is something we would consider preventative in that regard.
Right.
Though there
And-
might be applications for remedy to
Yeah.
certain illnesses and conditions.
Yeah.
But again, you would have to go and look for the papers, the doctors, the people that have spent their life studying that.
Absolutely. Especially on the subject of autophagy. Aileen White, I think she's the leading researcher in the country. She was on Peter Attia's podcast the other day. or the other days and years ago. I don't know when exactly, but she's the leading, one of the leading at least researchers. So if you're really curious about autophagy, then you can visit her website or her lab's website and get more information. And when it comes to fasting, intermittent fasting, there are so many researchers out there today because there have been so many studies done. So you can look into, you can find a lot of good studies on that, you know.
Yeah, and especially if you're trying to tackle weight loss, maybe you're somebody that's struggling with your health, weight, you know, emotional states or things of that degree. We'll share the info in some links and some videos to go check out, but there seems to be some strong studies to indicate that just a caloric deficit is not going to be enough to keep weight off. You might be successful in the short term, but looking at people over a year's length, trying to just do a caloric deficit, typically just end up right back where they started from.
Right. So another really benefit of this intermittent fasting or the reason we know it is so efficient at, you know, weight loss is that because it really stabilizes insulin level, right? Because if you look at the other side of it, people who are insulin resistant, they have a really hard time losing weight. Yeah. Again, the exact mechanism is not, I'm not an expert, but in very short, plain English terms, the fast cells are not, basically the ability of insulin is impaired. Therefore, it is harder to dispose glucose, meaning that the glucose cannot be really broken down from cells. I think that was my understanding. So basically, if you're insulin resistant, it's harder to lose weight.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why the intermittent fasting is also effective at weight loss, rather than just having stable level of insulin.
Yeah. By fasting, you allow yourself to reduce your resistance to insulin. It's like any other drug. Yeah. We just think of it differently because it's in our bodies and naturally produced. But just like any drug out there, for the most part, eventually you develop a tolerance to it. Insulin is no different, and we've been abusing the drug for a very long time because culturally we've evolved into a place where we consume as much as we can, as often as we can.
Yeah.
And for the long time, and again, this is no fault of a lot of people, this has just been the science that was supported and also government backed to say, have a lot of meals through the day, keep your metabolism firing. You know, this was thought to be, and still is in a lot of circles, to be the most effective way to combat weight and weight loss.
Yeah.
And there just seems to be research coming out year after year to suggest that that is the most impractical, ineffective way. Like, how many times have we talked about this? The health industry has grown exponentially, yet 70%, more than 70% of Americans are overweight or obese.
Right.
Dude, that's absurd. Yeah. More than 2/3 of people are overweight.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I don't know. I think, you know, you just mentioned it a little bit. It's more than the practical reasons, right? I think a lot of it is like created for us. Like, for example, like, you know, I'm not gonna shit on cereal companies, but that's the slogan of cereal companies.
I'll
right?
shit on them, those fuckers, taking advantage of people.
The most important meal of the day, breakfast.
Okay,
we're not saying again that breakfast is bad. Okay, we're not really formulating that idea. No. It's just that a lot of times, I mean, there are benefits of skipping it. Okay, that's all we're saying. Okay, we're not really pushing the idea that breakfast is bad. Don't have breakfast. You know, we're not saying that.
No.
But
your window could be breakfast. It really can be.
Oh, actually, there's a study done pretty recent because, intermittent fast is 16 to 8 hours, right? And 8 hours, they experimented throughout the day, like 6 to 2, right? And 1 to 9 and things like that. And then they found that it's more beneficial to do it, during the day, morning to day, basically, rather than like afternoon to like nighttime. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense, though. It seems like, of course, it's easy to say, well, that makes sense. And that can lead you astray big time. But to me, that kind of makes sense. The further you get away from your sleep time
Yeah.
to digest and do all that.
Absolutely.
Probably the better time for your
right.
body to repair more effectively. Not have to worry about digesting while you're sleeping.
Right. By the time you go to bed, your insulin level is stable. Right. Yeah.
And then you get the extra 8 hours, of sleep. Ideally, you're getting your full amount of sleep. We could do a whole another episode on sleep because there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of stuff on sleep.
Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, we just wanted to talk about this, through our experiences because fasting is, one of the big parts of our lives, I guess, right?
Mm.
Because we've been doing this for a long time and really beneficial and in many ways, not just health, but in terms of weight control, in terms of performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sports that we like to do. So we just wanted to talk about this so that we can present the ideas to you guys, and then you can maybe look into it.
Yeah. I will say there's 2 guaranteed things that you can say that fasting is good for. I don't need data to back it up because by definition, they'll be true. If you fast and skip a meal, you save money.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're not buying that meal.
Save time as well.
Time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, you're doing something that's disciplined, so you're taking action and making choice for your life.
Yeah, 100%.
So anytime you're disciplined in any area of your life, it has better ability to be more disciplined in other areas.
Yeah.
So those 2 alone can be huge factors of why you should maybe even try fasting. I can save some money, and maybe I can become a little more disciplined individual.
Right.
So even without all the health benefits, longevity, all the other things that it's offering, fasting alone offers those 2 unique benefits.
Yeah. And just lastly, start slowly. If you're not really confident, if you're not sure that you can do like 16-hour fasting, then start slowly.
Yeah, because you can also, so the other thing we forgot to mention is that you can do the fasting. One day you fast, the next day you don't fast.
Right.
You can play with it until eventually you can be like, I'm going to fast every day of every week. Intermittent fasting or whatever you want your windows to be. Or you can just alternate every other day. Maybe twice a week.
Yeah.
Maybe you save yourself up for the weekend to not fast.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just going to alternate. There's so many different ways to do fasting. You do 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day.
Yeah.
You can break it up, your week, your month. There's a lot of variability, but it's going to be beneficial even if you just do it once a week because it's still going to affect your insulin resistance.
Yeah. That statement, I'm not 100% sure, but, whether like once a week fasting can actually have positive impact on insulin level, that I'm not sure. But maybe, we can look into it later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's about it. I think we've talked about most of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. Right?
Yeah. I think that'll be it. I'll wrap it up.
If you guys have any questions, let us know. But otherwise, thank you guys.
Thank you. Time to eat some cookies.
That's this week's episode of the Theory of Living podcast. Thanks for listening with us. We are Lafayette and Kai. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode.
And if you'd like to help support us, we have a Patreon page where you can subscribe for exclusive content.
Also, please share it with others who you think may find value in our discussion.
Leave a rating, a review, and please subscribe to the podcast.
Thank you again.
See you next time.